anytime I'm around the product, in person, that little guy creeps up on my shoulder and tells me, "Hey man, what are you doing? Why are you not getting ready to go to work?" It's something I'm sure will dissipate in time, but I'm still dealing with it, and it gets better all the time. But I think it'll always probably be there. I don't think I've ever been professionally. I've never been as passionate as I was with my wrestling career, and I don't think that ever goes away.
I mean, I know that, Vince is out kind of, and Triple H is in that creative hot seat. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well put. There you go.
Yeah. But I guess that doesn't change much for you because of your status, right? Like, are you still kind of, because I know Triple H had you come into the Performance Center from time to time and getting your wisdom. Is there like a deal still like that in a way?
I have an open door policy whenever I want to show up, either in Orlando at the Performance Center or with our main roster WWE. I've got an open invitation to come and share with the talent my experiences and my philosophies and try and help some of these talents develop their characters. And it's strange because I love to do that. I really do. I do love to do it, but it's really difficult to travel to go and do that at this point after all these years, to get on the plane and to do that and to get there. And it's still like I'm still coming to grips with not being a performer in that aspect. So it's difficult. I don't know. That could be a little bit selfish of me. But when I am there, I'm always an open book, and openly, and I look for people to come talk to me. I can't talk to everybody, but they know that I'm there, and if they want to ask me questions and they want my perspective on things, I'm more than willing and wanting to share that information with them. Some people. I think some people do it just to say, well, hey, I was talking to Taker about this, about that. And then there's some that are actually, they want to know, they want to pick my brain. That's probably something that will come a little bit later, I think. I just, the travel aspect of it for me right now is difficult. And for whatever reason, even at this point in my career, I think I'm more recognizable than ever. So getting from point A to point B is it's quite the adventure to get through an airport and try and give people, try to be respectful and try to, not be a snob or anything like that, which I'm not. But a lot of times people just don't understand. Like I had to go and do an appearance just the other day, and man, my travel was it was crazy. I got flights delayed. I was awake for over 30 hours because, and it's hard to be, sometimes it's hard to be nice and
sure.
When you've been awake for 30 hours and you're catching a 5 a.m. flight to get back home to go do another appearance. I know you got the violin playing. I'm not looking for anybody to feel sorry.
I'm feeling for you.
I'm just trying to, it's just tough to get out sometimes and go to the Performance Center. I'm more like in the summertime. My kids are out of school and everything else, so it's easier. And I do spend a lot of time in Florida, so I usually do a lot more in the summer.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to ask you a little bit about you and Brock in a second, but I do feel like it leads us nicely there, because you were talking about people that you might have given some wisdom to and have picked your brain. I do believe you have spoken to Omos before, right, down at the Performance Center. What do you think about that? He's getting in there with the beast himself.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see what happens there. I'm really high on Omos. He's got a ways to go, and it's difficult because they're so hard to book him. I mean, there's nobody that matches Brock, maybe, but it's so hard to match anyone up against him. And it's not like it was for Andre back in the day. Like Andre, before WWE really took over Andre went from territory to territory and traveled. And I mean, he was just a global ambassador. And so people didn't see him week after week after week on the same television show.
Gotcha.
And that's, with Omos, that's something that they're going to have to figure out, because he's a very special talent. And he's still developing that talent. And my gosh, what a great human being he is.
Mm.
He is so, I'm killing him off because he's a bad guy, right? But he is a really nice human being.
Yeah.
And he is a sponge, and he wants to get better, and he wants to do all of these things that I look for when I see somebody that I really want to mentor.
Mm.
It's difficult because it's just so hard to book him in a way that he should be booked. He is an attraction. He's not an every week, every TV kind of guy. I mean, he has to be special, and I think he needs to be protected that way. So it's going to be interesting. I think it's a really interesting dynamic. You have this guy that is massive and just dwarfed. If you saw the show last night, he dwarfed Brock. Nobody dwarfs Brock, right? Mm. And so it should be interesting. I'm curious to see how it all works out. But Omos is a great human being.
Speaking of interesting, I find all of the backstage kind of like video clips and snippets we've seen of documentaries of yourself and Brock so fascinating, right? Because we all know the original clip, the UFC one that got everyone buzzing at the time. After the streak was broken at 30, and I know that was a hard day for you just physically, right?
Right.
How did that work for you and Brock? Would you say that almost brought you closer together? What was the working relationship like, kind of sharing big moments like that?
Brock and I have always been close. And even when he came up the first time, I mean, I can't tell you numerous occasions where we sat down and we talked about things. He ran by me early on when he was thinking about leaving.
Right.
When he wanted to go play football, or he wanted to, do something else. And I gave him my perspective on it. And where everyone else was telling him, man, you're making a mistake, or you shouldn't do this. I told him opposite. I was like, dude, if you don't do it now, you're going to look back one day and you're going to have that regret. Mm. So this is going to be here. Brock's a special talent. Everybody knows the talent that Brock has. WWE was always going to be there for him. And then, he goes out and he tries football, and then he ends up in mixed martial arts and does, I don't know, he did pretty good.
Pretty good.
World champion, biggest pay-per-view draw at the time that they had. And then his career, when he came back, was picked up right where he left off. No, I think the world of Brock, and I think I don't think he gets enough credit for his business acumen and his knowledge of the business. I think, what I already knew about Brock, and I didn't know this because I was concussed and I didn't even know my name, but my wife told me when the ambulance got to the hospital in New Orleans, they took me right to the hospital afterward because I was severely concussed.
Yeah.
That, right behind the ambulance was Vince and Brock. Vince left WrestleMania to go to the hospital, and Brock was in either with Vince or in the next car. So, that tells you a little bit about the human being right there.
Yeah, that tells you about the man.
Yeah, and then the next year, and this clip, I guess, is someone just told me about this. This clip has just been showing lately of him kind of right before I went out the next year when I worked with Bray in San Francisco. Brock was kind of there, like, because I'll be the first to admit my confidence was just shattered. That concussion, I couldn't pick it out where it happened. I didn't know how it happened. There wasn't anything reckless done. My confidence was shattered, and that's hard for a lot of people to believe. You've had this amazing career, but something like that happens late in your career. I had the self-doubt bug, and he was right there. And just let me know that, hey, you're still the man. Go out there and get you some, and meant the world to me.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. You know, speaking of the streak or adjacent to the streak, people had said at one point, right, when you faced CM Punk, people were like, maybe it'll be him. I mean, to be fair, they were doing the maybe it'll be him every year for a while, right? That was while that was kind of while it was awesome. He's had kind of a few knocks against him lately, with in the AEW, obviously all the controversy over there last year. What was it like working with him for you at that WrestleMania? You know, I thought it was a great match for one, by the way. But he was red hot at that time as well, man, wasn't he? So, you know, talk me through that.
Yeah, no, he was great to work with. I mean, I'm very proud of that match, and you know, we sit down and we thought about ideas and everything. I mean, it was great. I had no beef. I had no beef with Punk. He was always business with me, and I hopefully I was with him. I know I've been told that you know, because I have some kind of beef against him, or yeah, man, social media.
Yeah, they tell you, like, hang on.
They tell me, well, they tell me, because I don't read comments, and I don't follow it. But I have a lot of people who are like, oh man, did you see where they said this or somebody said that? I'm like, no, I didn't know anything about it. But you know, supposedly I squashed his push and all of this stuff. And if anybody who knows me, like, even if I didn't like somebody, which I don't dislike Punk. I don't, you know, that's another rumor that I've got, you know, I have this disdain for him. He was good with me, and that's all that matters. And business is business. Whatever's best for business. That's one thing I did learn from Vince. Business is business. Whatever's best for business is what you do. And so I can't worry about what people who have no clue about our business. Everybody thinks they're a everybody thinks they're an expert, but they really have no clue.
Especially online.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous, right? But yeah, business has always been business, and I had no problem with him, and he was always business with me. So
great.
There you go.
I've got two quick ones to run by you, right? Number one, AJ Styles, obviously a great, you know, I was so happy to see you two work together in whatever capacity. You know, amazing if there were fans, but, you know, still great the way you did it. AJ told me openly that he tried to get you to do it again, right? He tried to get you in front of fans. Has anybody else tried to lure one out of you since you've been in retirement that you can share with us? You know, I'll tell you another guy. Drew McIntyre tells me he used to try really hard, because you remember that great gif where I think it's the tag match you worked on the pay-per-view, and Drew just pops up behind you, and everyone was like, oh man, maybe they could do something there. And I know he was always desperate to do it.
Yes.
You got any names for me?
No, those were, yeah, AJ wanted to run it back. And we, obviously, because of COVID, we had to come up with the Boneyard match. But originally that was going to be a stadium match, a regular wrestling match. And, you know, I was pretty much done until I would already pretty much decided. I wasn't concrete, but I was like, there's really nobody left that I feel like I could have that kind of match with. And then AJ got on the phone with me and was like, man, it sounds like you might have one more in you. And I'm like, oh man, because he was somebody that I really always wanted to work with. I mean, he is just, I mean, no pun intended, he is phenomenal. Sure. And can work with anybody. And some of my best matches have been with a size discrepancy. You know, there's just a huge difference in the guys like Kurt Angles and the Eddie Guerreros and Shawn Michaels. I just had my best matches with those guys because I love telling those stories. I love telling the big guy and how the little guy has to chop the big guy down. I love storytelling. That's what I did best.
Yeah.
And I always did it best with guys like that. And AJ, man, he gets it. He understands. And yeah, I just couldn't pass that opportunity up. And yes, we did the Boneyard. It was about midway through that night that we were filming that I realized that I was done.
Yeah.
But he to his credit, man, he tried really hard to get me to run it back. And I thought about it, but I just don't think that I could have done him justice or the match justice. I think the tank was on E, and I'd got everything out of that sponge that I could possibly get, meaning that sponge being my body.
Yeah.
And yes, Drew McIntyre, he's hit me up many times. Sheamus has hit me up many times. There's a lot of guys that I think those guys want that. They want that W is what they want.
Put them over.
Yeah, they want that W because they know that's where that would be. And believe me, if I thought that I could live up to the expectations at this point, I would do it. But we're off to different things. We're off to a one dead man show now. So
that's it. That's exactly it. I mean, last one from me. Again, I'm a huge sort of around the turn of the millennium was when I was I'm still a big fan, right? But that's when I was as a kid, massive fandom, in fact. The invasion angle, right? Now just get your thoughts on this, because I thought Undertaker and Kane, Brothers of Destruction, apex, right? You two were, oh man, it was so great that you finally united and you were like this dominant force. Right. And you had the Stalker angle with DDP. Then you had the tag thing with Chronic. I'm just wondering, like, you're at the top of your game, and it's like meant to be this enormous storyline, and it just felt like, I don't know, maybe Undertaker at his apex could have been utilized a little bit better, in my opinion.
Well, it's kind of one of those situations. Like, again, it's so difficult to book those two guys. I mean, you have two mythical kind of superpowers. Now they've combined forces.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a guy that makes fire and another guy that throws lightning, and two super predators. It becomes really difficult to book that. I mean, it's kind of like the Road Warriors, magnified when you have those characters that were so strong on their own, and then you put them together. I mean, who beats that team, really? So it was just kind of like, oh man, we're gonna book ourselves into a corner. And then I think, as good as it was and as fun as it was for everyone to finally see the brothers together, I mean, they got a taste of it. And if I was to be honest, I would have liked to probably taken it a little further. But Kane was so valuable as a single, and my role, I think we had more to give to the product as singles than we did as a tag team. I think we elevated the tag teams for the time that we were together, but I think our goal and our we served more of a purpose as individuals. But it was really fun together. It was, and one of my favorite. I know we're running out of time, but one of my favorites is a match that we did. I'm trying to think of the two guys' name. I'm horrible, but where I was trying to do the power bomb. I did the power bomb, and then Kane was going to do a power bomb, and he threw his guy over his head like he had never done a power bomb or the push-up.
The last ride, yeah,
the last ride, and he ends up taking his guy and he throws him over his head. It was just completely a botch, right? But it was so funny, because it was the big brother telling the little brother. So it was so bad, because these guys had to take 2 or 3 power bombs apiece, because I was having to show Kane how to do the last ride. And but it was so much fun. And I think it would have been fun to take it a little further, but again, there was just nobody that really matched up with us, and it was just going to be a slaughter fest.
I thought it was kind of a stab in the back that Vince was trying to make fun of Dad, and he might have very well been trying to do that. But anything that Dad always tackled, he got over 110%. So, I mean, he's probably the only person that could get polka dots over. And it backfired.